Let me tell you something strange about silence in the digital age. Imagine a beach at sunset. The sky is a bruised purple, streaked with veins of golden fire. It is a moment of profound beauty. And if you look along the shoreline, you'll see a row of silhouettes. Almost everyone has their phones out. They are squinting through glass, adjusting exposure, trying to trap the sun in a digital box. They aren't actually looking at the sky. They're looking at the version of the sky they want to show you later. But then you see one person. Their hands are in their pockets. Their phone is tucked away, forgotten. They are just looking. Their eyes are wide, absorbing the shifting light, their face warmed by the final rays. They aren't thinking about a caption. They aren't wondering if this looks aesthetic. They are alone with the horizon. In our world, that person is an anomaly. They are a ghost in the machine. We live in a society where almost everything is shared. Birthdays, coffee cups, sunsets, tears, laughter. Even our deepest pain is dressed up with filters and served to an audience. It's a conditioned performance. Yet there is a group of people who stay completely invisible. They scroll quietly, they observe deeply, but they rarely, if ever, post. You might even know someone like that. Maybe you're someone like that. And here's the question that always lingers. Why? Why would someone choose to stay unseen? Why would someone leave the digital stage when the lights are so bright and the applause so addictive? It's easy to assume these people are just shy. It's easy to label them as introverts or Luddites who don't understand technology. But that is a surface-level assumption that misses the most fascinating part of the story. Beneath that silence, there is an entire psychology at play, a quiet rebellion, a hidden superpower. Because for some, silence is not an absence of thought. It is the ultimate form of control. This is the deep psychology of the invisible user. And what they've discovered might just be the secret to surviving the modern world. To understand the person who doesn't post, we first have to understand what we are actually doing when we hit share. For most of human history, our experiences were private. Your identity was formed in the quiet moments of your own mind. But over the last decade, something shifted. We transitioned from a culture of connection to a culture of performance. Social media was originally pitched as a way to stay in touch, but it turned into an unconscious audition for belonging. We stopped using these platforms to tell people what we were doing and started telling them who we are. Or more accurately, who we want them to think we are. We are curators of our own museums. Think about the last time you posted a photo. The angle, the lighting, the deliberate omission of the messy background. Every post is a brick in the wall of a persona we are building for public consumption. But here's the problem. When you spend all your time building the museum, you forget how to live in the house. The person who doesn't post has realized something profound. The second you decide to share a moment, the nature of it changes. It stops being about the experience and starts being about the perception of the experience. If you're at a concert and you're filming, you aren't listening to the music. You're monitoring the frame. The invisible scroller refuses to make that trade. They have a high degree of what psychologists call experiential authority. They don't need a third party, the audience, to validate that their life is interesting. They are the sole witness to their own existence. And for them, that is enough. But it goes deeper than just being present. It's about the very mechanics of how our brains process value. We've all heard of dopamine. Every time you see that red notification, your brain gets a tiny hit. It's the same chemical reaction that keeps people pulling the lever on a slot machine. It's a loop. Post, receive validation, feel good, repeat. Over time, this loop rewires us. We start to develop an external locus of control. Our moods tethered to the whims of an algorithm. If the post gets 100 likes, we're successful. If it gets 10, we're a failure. We become digital puppets. Now imagine the psychological strength it takes to step outside that loop. People who don't post often score higher on self-restraint and emotional independence. They aren't immune to validation, nobody is, but they have developed a psychological immunity to the digital version. They don't need the echo of the internet to tell them they are enough. They operate from an internal locus of control. They are deeply secure in their identity. They know who they are when the screen is dark. And when you know who you are in the dark, you don't need to shout for attention in the light. But there's a darker side to this as well. A reason for silence that isn't about peace, but about protection. We are living in the age of the digital panopticon, a design for a prison where you act as if you are watched at all times. Your internal monologue has been colonized by the potential reactions of other people. You start to think in captions. For many, this led to a phenomenon called self-presentational pressure, an exhausting low-grade anxiety. Some people stop posting not because they are confident, but because they are tired. They are suffering from digital burnout. They felt like they were losing their psychological ownership over their own lives. By staying silent, the invisible user is guarding their ownership. They are keeping their most precious moments untouchable. They are saying, "This moment is mine. You don't get a piece of it. You don't even get to see it." This is the quiet rebellion. Keeping your life as an experience is an act of war in a world that demands content. But let's look closer at the person who scrolls but never speaks. You see them in the viewed by list. They are watching. Some might call them lurkers, but is it? Or is it a form of deep observation? In a world drowning in noise, those who stay in the shadows are often the ones who see everything clearly. These people are introspective observers. They see the desperation behind the high-definition photos. They see the loneliness behind the perfect couples. Because they aren't in the game, they see the stadium as it is. They aren't absent. They are overflowing. They just choose stillness instead of spectacle. Most of us post because we are afraid of being forgotten, a modern form of death anxiety. We want to leave a digital footprint so that we can say, "I was here. I mattered. Look at the proof." But the person who doesn't post has a different relationship with mortality. They are comfortable with the ephemeral. They understand that a sunset is beautiful precisely because it disappears, that a conversation is meaningful because it was just for two. There is a profound freedom in that, the freedom to not be on. When you stop posting, you stop thinking in filters. You start noticing the details that the camera can't catch. The specific way the air smells before a storm, the exact tone of a friend's voice when they're actually happy. You start to rediscover the simplicity of doing things for yourself. Imagine cooking a beautiful meal. The modern reflex is to take a photo, to wait until the lighting is right. By the time you eat, the food is cold. Now imagine cooking that same meal, sitting down and just eating it, tasting the spices, enjoying the silence. The person who doesn't post is tasting the food while it's still hot. But what about the social cost? Doesn't invisibility lead to isolation? This is the great irony. Social media was designed to connect us, but it has left us more isolated than ever. We have 5,000 friends, but nobody to call at 3 a.m. We have likes, but no intimacy. When you stop posting, you start rebuilding real closeness. You notice who checks in without updates. You learn who remembers your birthday when there's no notification. You learn who actually cares about the you outside the screen. The connections that remain are raw. They are unbroadcasted. They are heavy, warm, and infinitely more real. The person who doesn't post isn't antisocial. They save their best stories for the table, not the feed. They save their vulnerability for their partners, not their followers. They save their presence for the room. However, we must address the other side. Not everyone who is silent is doing it from a place of peace. For some, the silence is driven by a deep, paralyzing fear. The fear of being misunderstood. The fear that if they show their true, unfiltered self, the world will reject them. This is self-presentational anxiety at its extreme. They look at the polished, perfect lives of others and they feel less than. Their behind the scenes can't compete. So they retreat. Their silence isn't a superpower, it's a shield. They lock the door because they don't trust the world. If this is why you don't post, hear this. Your silence is not a failure. It is a sanctuary. It is a place where you can be messy, where you can be wrong, where you can change your mind without explanation. Staying invisible might be the only way to protect your inner truth. You are not hiding, you are preserving. You are protecting the fragile parts of yourself from a culture that wants to turn them into data points. And as you stay in that silence, something profound begins. A homecoming. Stepping away from the noise is like walking into a quiet room after a loud party. At first, the silence is deafening, but then the ringing in your ears begins to fade. You start to hear your own voice again. Not the caption voice, not the persona voice, but the real you, with quiet desires and unspoken fears. You start to rediscover what you actually like, not what you've been conditioned to think is cool. You begin to notice that the world is much bigger and more beautiful than a 4-inch screen can ever show. You start to experience the observer's edge. You become a master observer. You see the patterns of human behavior. You see the world with a clarity that the performers can never have. You become the quiet center of the storm, The pressure to be seen is rising, but you are holding on to something sacred. They are guarding the truth, protecting the real you that exists when the screen goes black. And as you sit there watching this, you might start to feel it. That quiet urge to just stop, to let the sunset happen without a witness. To realize that being unseen isn't the same as being insignificant. It's where your real life begins. But why is it so hard to stay in that space? And what happens to the person who stays invisible for too long? The answers lie in the ownership paradox and the sacred silence. A hand trying to grab a handful of water, but it is all slipping through the fingers, visceral and psychological. An impressionistic oil painting of a narrow European street at dawn. Cobblestones wet with reflected light. Two people standing under a small umbrella in the rain, looking at each other. Intimate and romantic. A person in a beautiful setting, their face obscured by a bright smartphone screen. Represents the loss of reality. A vibrant oil painting slowly being digitized into a pixelated cold blue grid. Represents the change in memory. A person's head where memories are being sucked out and stored in a cold, metallic box. Symbolic of offloading. A close-up of a human eye where the reflection is just a static photograph, while a real flower sits inches away. A hand holding a thick oil painting and crushing it into a small gray plastic square. Loss of depth. A person sitting in a circle of charcoal-rendered digital ghosts reaching for a glowing golden heart. An ornate glowing golden key floating inside a human heart made of deep red paint. Vault of the soul. A delicate painting of a sunrise being defaced by thousands of tiny black thumbs-up stamps. A person's face lit by a phone screen, flickering with doubt as they look at an unposted masterpiece. A silver ballot box where people are dropping likes while one person refuses to let their light be voted on. A pristine white marble temple in a dark indigo void, symbolic of an unshared, sacred life. A split landscape, frozen blue Polaroid frames versus a continuous, flowing river of gold oil paint. An abstract timeline of broken glass shards showing filtered images, gritty and fragmented. A person frantically jumping between glowing, floating highlight islands in a terrifying empty abyss. A wide-angle shot of a person standing in a blooming meadow, arms open, absorbing wholeness. A close-up of a white wall where a golden shadow of a tree is dancing. Deep observation of the mundane. A messy, lived-in living room, warm, real, and textured. The unaesthetic truth of peace. A figure walking through a forest where trees melt into each other in fluid brushstrokes. The flow state. A hand throwing away scissors and film as a vibrant explosion of color fills the canvas. Unfiltered glory. A person sitting in reflection in a dark room. A single small green sprout grows from the floorboards. A beautiful violin lying on velvet in a dark, empty concert hall. Significance without witnesses. An abstract chart where visibility and value are being pulled apart. Breaking the link. A heavy stone anchor resting in a deep, calm ocean, glowing while digital icons storm the surface. A person standing like an immovable mountain while millions of tiny blue birds fly around them. A person staring into a phone as a mirror, but seeing only hearts and thumbs up. Digital ego. A shattered phone screen where a wildflower grows through the cracks into natural light. A person sitting inside a sphere of golden light in a dark, messy storm. Internal sanctuary. A close-up of a person looking into a dark, calm pool, reflecting their true, unfiltered face. A figure walking away from a bright stage of empty profiles into a dark, starlit night. A dimly lit living room where two people sit close on a rug, talking by a fire. Real presence. A group in a tight, warm embrace. Thick, energetic brushstrokes conveying the volume of connection. An old wooden table with steaming coffee and an open, unread book. A sense of discovery. Two faces close together in the dark, eyes wide with interest. The newness of shared truth. A dusty digital notification bell in the corner, while a hand knocks on a real wooden door. A silhouette of a chest where a small glowing portrait of a friend is visible inside like a locket. A person walking in a park at night while distant house windows glow with warm light. Two hands intertwined, rendered in heavy textured impasto. The weight of real connection. A rustic dining table laden with food and candles. No phones. The social sanctuary. A couple whispering in a dark room. Minimal lighting, the private nature of their bond. A person in a bright clinical hallway with a jagged charcoal shadow pulling them back. A person with their hand over their mouth while digital comments swirl in the background. A glass figurine shattering under the weight of several glowing blue digital gavels. A person behind a heavy dark curtain peeking out at a bright party they want to join. A split screen. A glowing workspace highlight versus a dark, messy room. The pain of comparison. A heavy iron door with dozens of locks at the end of a dark, foggy alleyway. A person's head where thoughts are vibrant pain, but the mouth is stitched with digital threads. A person sitting in a small glowing amber cave in the middle of a digital blizzard. A person in an art studio surrounded by failed paintings, happily painting over them. A glowing golden pearl inside a rough oyster shell on the dark textured seabed. A hand placing a glass dome over a delicate glowing flower against a harsh grid of numbers. A greenhouse at night where unposted plants thrive. The sanctuary of private growth. A person walking with a lantern toward a warm glowing house on a hill at twilight. A person in a high-ceilinged empty stone hall, overwhelmed by the heavy vertical silence. A close-up of a hand twitching toward an empty pocket. The physical ache of withdrawal. A close-up of a person with a look of sudden calm realization as natural light hits them. A shadow reaching for a real flower while the person stands perfectly still. The real self. A collection of humble items. A cracked mug, dried weeds painted with intense, vibrant love. A person on a cliff edge looking at a massive, swirling Milky Way. The phone is insignificant. A close-up of wise eyes where a forest reflection replaces the glow of a screen. A crystal prism turning chaotic blue light into a clean, focused beam of white clarity. A person meditating in the center of a hurricane of glowing icons. A circle of still air. A hand switching off a lamp, plunging a room into rich, textured charcoal darkness. A person on a balcony at twilight, slowly closing their laptop with a knowing smile. A dark seed cracking open underground as a vibrant golden tree grows upward, unseen. A mysterious forest at night with a single glowing path leading into the mist. An ancient heavy golden key sitting on a velvet cushion, glowing with internal light. A human heart being wrapped in a warm golden thread of private, unshared memories. An impressionistic European street at dawn, cobblestones shining with reflected rain. Two faces close together by a candle, suddenly blinded by a cold blue smartphone. Memories being sucked out of a head and stored in a metallic filing cabinet in the sky. A human eye reflecting a pixelated icon while a thick painted real flower is ignored. A person holding their hands over their chest as a blindingly bright golden light peeks out. A sunset painting being defaced by thousands of black thumbs-up stamps. Loss of purity. A person looking at a phone while a magnificent sunrise happens behind them, ignored. A glowing golden hourglass filled with unshared memories in a calm, dark forest. A person trying to catch golden butterflies in a cold metal net. Butterflies are crushed. A dark road where only a few highlight billboards are lit. The void between. A person watching a simple shadow move across a floor, fascinated by the presence. A figure swimming in a deep, calm river of liquid gold and amber oil paint. Flow. A film reel being unspooled and thrown into a fire. The smoke turning into a vibrant mural. A person alone on a vast salt flat at night under the stars. Solid without an audience. A person standing like a massive oak while a digital storm blows around them. Immovable. A person punching a mirror that shows a perfect digital face, shattering the illusion. A person sitting inside a sphere of golden light in a dark void. Identity piece. A close-up of two people holding each other's faces, rich earthy tones and textures. Friends laughing around a pub table. The energy is high, real, and unbroadcasted. A person hiding in a bright, cold digital hallway. Their shadow is a dark claw. A mouth being covered by a glowing blue digital X. The fear of being canceled. A person happily painting with their hands in a messy studio. No cameras, no performance. A seedling growing inside a glass bell jar in a dark, misty forest. Protected growth. A cinematic shot of a quiet, empty library at night. The silence feels physical. A person listening to the wind, eyes closed, soft, natural light, internal homecoming. A person throwing their phone into wildflowers and running toward mountains at dawn. A person on a high balcony, seeing the city through a clear, golden-focused lens. A person sitting under a glowing tree in a desert while a digital sandstorm rages. A person sitting in a dark room looking at the moon, completely at peace. A blank white canvas with a single tiny, hyper-detailed oil-painted ladybug. Real life. A person walking into a dense dark fog, A sense of long-term, deep silence. A heavy golden crown sitting in a dusty attic, unseen and unworn. Silent confidence. A hand choosing a real, vibrant apple over a glowing digital image of one. Choice. A portrait of a person in a crowd. Everyone else is blurry. This person is in focus. A person closing a massive iron book that glows from the inside. Absolute control. A wide shot of a mirror in a snowy field reflecting the vast empty sky. Hands cupping a small flame in the dark. Light carving out the features of the face. A close-up of two people's eyes meeting in the dark. The spark of real contact. A person on a mountain peak in the dark with a calm smile. Self-contained. A leather-bound globe glowing with internal light sitting on a dark desk. Inner worlds. A single lit window in a dark house under a giant silent moon. Sanctuary. A face looking out a window, the expression shifting to awakened clarity. A bowl of fruit painted with hyper-saturated impasto, reality returning in color. A figure walking in a misty park at dawn, hands swinging freely, unproven beauty. A forest stream made of chaotic blue swirls. A person sits absorbed by the sound. An abstract brain where golden neural threads resist a cold blue cloud pulling them. A glass vial breaking, splashing electric red dopamine paint across the canvas. A glass vial breaking, splashing electric red dopamine paint across the canvas. A person with their back to a spinning wheel of digital noise, looking into a dark void. A heavy iron chain where one link is pure gold, pulling away. Discipline. A person in a storm with a solid, glowing amber sun anchored in their chest. A single white flower in a vast canyon. Sufficiency without witnesses. An abstract painting where a jagged blue line smooths into a golden wave. Stability. A person standing in front of a dark wall, feeling their own face. Solid and real. A person splashing multicolored oil onto a canvas with abandon. Unfiltered glory. A shattered stained glass window where one pane is perfectly intact and glowing. A person slumped in a chair lit only by a phone on the floor. Shadow of fatigue. A porcelain cup dry and cracked with a few glowing digital drops at the bottom. A split screen. A thick painted crown versus a dark pile of broken pieces. A person looking into a funhouse mirror, seeing a digital distorted self. A figure closing a heavy wooden gate behind them to enter a calm green garden. A person with a finger to their lips draped in dark indigo. Authoritative silence. A smile mask being laid down on a table lit by soft natural light. A glowing digital eye looking at people hiding in the internal light of shadows. A rare flower blooming in the moonlight in a forest where no one is watching. A person on a rooftop at night hugging their knees. Intimacy with the self. A hand wiping dust from an oil painting of a heart. Reconnecting with truth. A golden compass in a dark void pointing toward a glowing inner sun. A person at the edge of a turbulent ocean seeing a distant lighthouse beam. A person standing still while a blurred glowing crowd runs forward. Doubt. A silver bell hanging in a sunlit room just after it stopped ringing. Steadyworth. A person in a quiet field with a calm smile. Confidence offline. A person in the rain crying and laughing. A shaping moment unpostable. A hand placing a golden memory sphere into an old wooden chest. Two streams of light, blue and gold, merging into a single powerful white beam. A glass puppet with colored plastic filters held in front of it. Distortion. A person walking around a giant glowing filter into the dark shadows. Relief. A person walking through snowy mountains at twilight. Footsteps in the snow. A person crouching to look at a jewel-like beetle on a leaf. Absorbing details. A sun-drenched hallway where the light creates golden patterns on the floor. A heavy golden coin with an eye engraved on it resting on velvet. Presence. A sharp focused person standing still while a blurry crowd moves around them. A close-up of a deep still well with a golden leaf on the indigo surface. Depth. Two people sitting in a dark attic leaning on each other. Silence understood. A secret diary glowing with internal light, held by a person in a dark room. A hand closing a window to a digital neon parade. Sacred privacy. A person riding a bicycle through a sun-drenched street, laughing, no phone. A single warm yellow window lit in a small wooden cabin in a dark forest. A person in a field of fireflies, unseen but not alone in the world. A person with eyes closed in a library, full silence and wisdom. A close-up of a wrinkled hand resting on a rough stone. Being a person. A wide cinematic sunset over a quiet lake. The invisible moment. The beach shoreline at sunset. The one figure watching, phoneless and focused. A close-up of eyes reflecting the sunset, truly inside the moment. A person standing between a camera and a real flower. Are you living for the lens? A small glowing wooden door labeled "To Be" in a vast digital wall. A hand placing a phone face down on a table. The room floods with sunlight. A ray of sun hitting a blooming plant in a dark room. Silence forming identity. A close-up portrait of a person with a knowing smile and golden hour light. Enough. Three golden seeds glowing in a dark indigo void. Silence, paradox, rebellion. A closed book on a table next to a cooling cup of tea. An ending. A person walking away into a vast forest as the sun sets. Expansive hope. A glowing heart being covered by a soft indigo silk cloth. Keeping it yours. A glowing heart being covered by a soft indigo silk cloth. Keeping it yours. A single lit window in a dark house under a starlit sky. Fade to black.